All right, and next slide, please. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to the open community meeting for Project ReShare for summer 2026. My name is Charlotte Johnson, and I am the convener of the Community Engagement Committee. I am also the research collection coordinator. Oh, we've got an echo, apparently.
I'm not hearing any echo on my end.
Okay, thank you. I'm the research collection coordinator at the University of Pittsburgh. And as I said, I am the convener for the Community Engagement Committee. This is a fairly new committee. We started maybe last summer, and we're going to be moving forward, running these community meetings and running elections and being a lot more present and getting folks involved with the project. So, we'll go on to our agenda. Next slide, please. So our agenda, quick welcome, including a couple of admin things, and then we'll have 10 minutes for community updates. We're going to hear from the Community Engagement Committee, and also comms and marketing, and finally product. And then after that, we're going to hand the mic over to Alan, Mark, and Sarah to talk about Crosslink. And then we'll have time for questions after that. All right, next slide, please. So, Clara, I will hand the mic over to you to talk about steering committee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clara Fehrenbach. I'm currently one of the co-chairs of the Project ReShare Steering Committee. I'm 1 year into my 2-year term, and I'm really delighted to announce the newest members of the steering committee that were elected by membership vote last month, I believe. First of all, we have Sae Ra Germaine, who's the Deputy CEO of CAVAL, and you'll be hearing from her later about Crosslink. Carl Piraneo has been elected to formally serve on the steering committee, though he has been serving as a liaison between the steering committee and the product committee prior to starting this term. And we're delighted to welcome Mark Sullivan, who's the executive director of IDS Network, who you will also be hearing from later. I really want to give our sincerest thank you to the outgoing steering committee members who really made a huge difference in this project and had been around for many years and really advanced the project immeasurably. Thank you to Charlie Barlow, Jill Morris, and Boaz Nadav Manes. I hope that we will continue to see you around the community, and I know that some of you are here today. Um, and I finally also want to announce that as of just our last meeting, this is hot off the presses, Ian Bogus has been elected co-chair with me of the steering committee and beginning his 2-year term. He's the executive director at Recap. And those are the housekeeping updates from the steering committee. And with that, I will pass it back to the Community Engagement Committee and Charlotte.
Great, thank you. All right, so the biggest update, as I said, we are a new committee. We just started in last summer. But we are already starting work on getting the community more engaged with the project. And one of those, this was something that was asked for by the community, which is our Project Reshare community Slack. This is a space for us to build community and talk shop and share tips. In a more informal avenue, and so you don't have to wait for meetings or anything like that to talk to fellow Project Reshare implementers and members. This Slack is coming to you July 20th, so in a couple of weeks. So get excited for that. All Reshare members and implementers are welcome to join. And I need to give a huge shout out to the working group who has been working this summer to put it together, namely Ashley Morrison, Jenna Lavalita, and Shelby Schroyer, and myself, but I'm not going to give a shout out to myself. Um, we have the application to join the Slack ready to go. Jerry, if you wouldn't mind dropping the link in chat. If you hear about this Slack and you want to sign up, please do. We will not be accepting the applications until a little closer to launch date, but to just get you on that waiting list, go for it. And sign up. And we're so excited to be able to share this new space. I think it's going to be really good. All right. Um, with that out of the way, hold on. Let me make sure I had everything. Um, we'll hand it over to Claire for marketing and communications.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Claire DeMarco. I'm the new chair of the Marketing and Communications Committee. I just wanted to share a brief update about some of the things that we're working on and give you an invitation to participate. So, first thing is that we're sharing a photo of a recent meetup that we had at ALA. These are regular things we try to do when we know there's a critical mass of ReShare members who are going to be at any particular conference or meeting. We like to set up these little meetups. So if you are heading to a conference or participating in a meeting that you think would be of interest to the ReShare community, you can always reach out to me in the marketing and communications group so we can maybe put you in touch with other folks that could set up a meetup at a conference. Another thing that we've been doing that's kind of been the major focus for marketing and communications has been an engagement with Philip Jacobson. Actually, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name. Okay, good. And he is a developer that we've been working with for some of our attempts to renew our marketing materials. And this really started long before Philip with the committee creating personas for ReShare. So as we know, the community for ReShare is very broad. It's not only made up of implementers. We also have members who support the project. We have consortial members. We have individual institutions. And so even prior to me joining, we had gone through an exercise of creating these ReShare personas to help us target our marketing communications at a particular audience. So using those personas informed a lot of decisions about drafting blog posts and emails, but we wanted to turn it into more of a kind of marketing focus. And so one of the things we thought about was, well, these personas are based on real people in our community. So let's see if we interview the real people and record those interviews, just do it over Zoom and record them. Could that be good content for people to describe the product, describe the project, describe why they're involved, what value they see in involvement, and what value they see in implementation? So we did a number of these interviews, just recorded them over Zoom, and then we engaged with Philip as a partner to try to edit them together into kind of a promotional video. The As you can imagine, the quality of recordings in Zoom is not, ideal for a slick, splashy video, but honestly, the Marketing Communications Committee has been really impressed with the way that Philip took that raw material, kind of analyzed it, saw what was good from it, how we could artistically use it, how the audio could be used separately from the video. He really came up with some creative ideas and was so creative, in fact, that what we realized is for a slightly broader engagement, we could get some wireframes and design elements from Philip that could help us to revise our website. So nothing to share yet in terms of visuals for that, but we are presenting to the steering committee soon kind of the direction that we're proposing for the website and our marketing material. So stay tuned. And hopefully we'll be thinking of creative ways to involve the entire community and giving input into this process, because we know we're at a level of maturity now that we want to make sure our visual representations and marketing materials reflect where we are today as a community. One last thing related to that is that we As we were developing these personas, thinking about audience, thinking about now having the community engagement committee as a separate entity, we started thinking about investigating more robust CRM systems. So CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management Systems. And you might think of this as kind of a corporate thing, but really, for a long time, we've been thinking about what happens when someone expresses an interest in membership in ReShare, and what are the different types of members and implementers that we have, and what's some of the information that we have about them that could help us communicate with them better and reach new audiences. So we're investigating right now what could a lightweight system look like, what would something more robust be like, and what the benefits would be. So that's something that we're just beginning that investigation. If any of this sounds remotely interesting to you all, I want to remind everyone that the Marketing and Communication Committee is open to all members. So we would welcome folks with particular interest in marketing and communications, people with backgrounds or interest in design. That would be absolutely welcome. You can contact me to learn more about our committee and how we are organized. We also updated our terms of reference in the Google Drive, so you can learn more about it there. So with that, I will pass it over to James.
Thanks for that update, Clara, and thank you for everybody for joining us for this community meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I am James Robinson, the co-convener of the Project ReShare Product Committee. Just a couple of very, very quick updates because everything after me is going to go into more detail about what Product Committee's number one priority and the big project that we've been working on as of late. So I don't want to hold us up from that. So just a couple of quick notes. First off, thank you to our outgoing co-convener, Mark Hoftitz. Mark Hoftitz from Boston Library Consortium had been our co-convener, served as a co-convener with me for the past 2 years, did an excellent work helping us wrangle this new iteration of this group that had been dormant for a little while. And a lot of the projects that we've been working on, especially the product enhancement process, I'm going to talk a little bit about here in a second, is straight out of his efforts. So cannot say enough cannot give enough praise to the work that Mark did. He has stepped down from the product committee because he's got a great new role at BLC. So we thank him for all of that work. And if you run into him in this meeting or in another context, be sure to show your appreciation of all the work that he's done for this project. Also want to give a big welcome to our new co-convener for the product committee, Nick Bannett from Minitex. He took over just in the last month or so, and he has been serving on the product committee for I think about a year and a half at this point now. So he's getting up to speed, learning the ropes, and has already contributed a lot, again, has worked a lot on the product enhancement process, and is already making my life so much easier as my co-convener. Because it's a lot of work that we do at product, and it's a lot for one person to take on. So again, if you see Nick in chat, congratulate him for stepping up to this new co-convener role. Finally, although we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing on the development side of product committee, we've also been working on, and we've talked in the past couple of community meetings about the product enhancement process, the road to the roadmap, so to speak, how a idea that somebody has about what they want to see in the product goes through all the steps of being submitted as an idea, being scoped out with that person's help and with the SMEs, how that development project, that potential development project gets evaluated for risks and what resources are needed and what kind of time is needed, and how that finally goes up to you as the community to prioritize and let us know how important a particular enhancement might be to you. We are doing, as the product committee and as the SMEs and as the developers, our final end-to-end testing of that process with a couple of old enhancement requests that have been submitted, some stuff that's in our backlog. Why are we testing out a process like this? Because there are a lot of people involved, and so we need to make sure that when things are go from the SMEs to the product committee or from the product committee to the developers or whatnot, that we have an understanding of what those handoffs are, that everybody knows what to look for and when, everybody knows what the expectations are as far as when they're done with something and can hand it off. We have some different automations that Alan Jones has been working on behind the scenes to make our lives easier so that we don't have to manually copy things or manually update things. So some making sure that those automations work and making sure that the documents that we've got and all the documentation practices that will help this process so that we can be as transparent as possible about what it is that we want to build, what it is that we are asking folks to evaluate, making sure that all of those documentation practices make sense. So there's a lot of administration stuff behind the scenes that we want to make sure is all ready to go before we roll this process out to the wider community. But we're in the final stages of that end-to-end testing to make sure that that all is working. When that's done, you will hear more about it from us probably at another community meeting, and we'll let you know how you can participate in the different steps of that project. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to turn it back over to Charlotte to introduce our main speakers today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, James and Claire, for your committee updates. Also, I see we've also got some folks signing up already for the Slack, which is great. We cannot wait to welcome you. So let's all get to the main event. We are joined here today by Mark Sullivan, Alan Jones, and Sae Ra Germaine to talk to us about the latest in Crosslink. I am going to, we're going to stop sharing this screen, James, and we're going to hand it over to Alan to share his presentation. And with that, Alan, it's all yours.
Sorry about that. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, or good morning. I'm in the wrong time zone. Hello, everybody. My name's Alan Jones. I'm the Senior Director for Digital Library and Technology and Technical Services at the New School. I've been working with Mark Sullivan and with Sae Ra Germaine, better part of a year on this, I think, with Trove and CAVAL. So it's been a minute to actually introduce this technology to you guys, which is a joint venture between Index Data and IDS Network. So with that, we're going to go into a little bit of the nuts and bolts. Hopefully, if all the live demo gods are aligned, you'll actually see what it is that's going on. So, oops. So I know I'm not going to ask a show of hands of how many people have or haven't heard of Crosslink, but I do want to ask, or at least make a distinction between what ReShare and what project or what Crosslink actually is, Crosslink and ReShare is. When we think about ReShare, we're actually thinking about the request process platform. So that's the supply app, that's the request app, that's ViewFind, that's all of the things that are that the user actually interacts with to either request, to process, or to receive materials within the ReShare networks in the different tenants. When we think about Crosslink, what we're actually talking about is the messaging agent that actually works kind of behind the scenes to transfer the information from one particular application to another. A little bit later, we're going to talk a little bit about what that architecture is, but this is a really important kind of separation that's happening in the life of this project, because previously, a lot of this had actually used an architecture that was known as ModRF. When we first started, a lot of the things that we did were hard-coded quite honestly, they were quite brittle. It was really difficult to actually diagnose different types of errors if things were either received or not received. So rather than thinking about kind of continuing down the path of further developing ModRS, we actually decided to partner with IDS to really think about what a flexible messaging agent might actually look like. So one of the problems, as you might be aware of, is if you're running ISO 18626 nickel, you're gonna you have to be running the same version as the other side of the receiving and supplying library, or the requesting and the supplying library. So you both have to be running version 2017. You both have to agree that all of the states that you're going to support are the same thing. What Crosslink basically does is it acts almost as a translation layer. You could be running 2021, you could be running 2017, you could be running 2014, and the request would move flexibly in between those request and supply apps. So it's a much more forgiving architecture. It allows us to intercept things and to do things with different types of services. I think that Mark's going to talk a little bit about. But just know that from the ReShare perspective, we're actually splitting the messaging part and the request apps into two separate kind of components. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mark.
So part of the thing with Crosslink is we were trying to come up with a way to solve a silo issue that we were seeing originally. And this was an idea that I came up with, and I started talking with Seb about. I think we agreed that it was between 3 and 4 years ago when we were talking about this idea and how to move on with it. But this was just something that has developed, and it's turned into something a lot more than we had really thought it was going to be, which has been fantastic. So IDS is a resource sharing network. We've been around for about 23 years now. We started as a pilot project back in 2003 because we couldn't get the Aleph universal borrowing module to work with the SUNY system that we'd set up. So at the library director of Milne Library and myself sat down and we came up with this idea of how to build another type of borrowing system using Iliad. We built statistics modules in it. We started developing other things. We had mentors programs. And we dropped, after 1 year of success, we dropped the pilot from it, but we kept the name IDS Project. We've developed other things over the years. IDS Search was a consortial-based cataloging system. We had all sorts of other things we developed. One of the major pieces we developed over the last 15 years has been IDS Logic, which provides for automation, updates, API access, processing of requests, a lot of abilities into Iliad that are just not in the actual software itself. These are some of the things that we are actually looking forward to adding into Crosslink and into ReShare in the near future as well. So we're hoping to be able to do a lot more work with the folks with ReShare, and it's one of the reasons why I'm very happy to be part of ReShare now. We've also been focusing on the peer support and peer advisors and the community aspects. Next week we have our virtual conference, so we hope for you all to join if you're up for it.
So what are some of the advantages of Crosslink over the ModRS component that we have been working with? Well, one, not only you can choose to decide to go with the ReShare request app, but you could also use Iliad. Currently, we're doing that through the add-on, but what if you could natively talk through Iliad as opposed to not needing an add-on at all, but just processing your requests directly the same way that you might do in Rapid ILL, the same way you might do in WorldShare or some of these other networks. So you wouldn't necessarily need another piece of software. You could also use Alma resource sharing. You could process things directly in COA. You could, so the idea being that you could actually connect a number of different clients to do this type of request processing as opposed to needing to use ReShare or another platform to actually do that kind of ILL processing. You could basically do it in your ILS. One of the things that we've been looking at is the possibility of doing network to network. We've talked a lot about that. It's part of the scope of the ISO 1866 nickel type of processing, where basically you could pass things onto one network. If it doesn't work, then you can pass it on to another network, and you can pass it on to another network until it's fulfilled. So the idea being that you're actually expanding the number of places that you could get something. The other thing is that it also offers a much more flexible architecture, which I talked a little bit about before. Some of the issues that I talked a little bit about, certainly there's a lot of technical debt. ModRS has been around for 5 or 6 years. It was part of the first version of ReShare. A lot of it was code that we had inherited from Knowledge Integration, who's moved on to do OpenRS. A lot of the things are actually hard-coded. There are a number of problems with the internal directory service. If Sarah, for example, over at the National Library of Australia wants to host a directory service outside of ReShare to not only support interlibrary lending, but maybe she wants to also do things in collective collecting or other types of services, that directory has to be completely replicated in another application. What if the directory actually supported both applications? So as we think about the external directory component, it's not just thinking about interlibrary lending, but a lot of other attached services. Could also include things like preservation mandates. And then I also talked about the version problem with 18626 nickel. So what does the Crosslink actually look like? Well, here's the thing. It's a middleware. It's not an interface. So, Mark, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, kind of what to expect, after the next day we migrate to Crosslink. What does it look like?
Pretty much everything's going to be the same. You'll see a little bit of a variation potentially in some of the labeling of the requests as they're coming in. Instead of being traditional ReShare or whatever, they could be coming in through the ISO connection and may show the ISO connection. So if this was for an Iliad, you would see it coming in through the Crosslink network that's going to be set up in Iliad. For Alma, it's going to be coming in through an external ROTA, and you're going to see it coming in through the ISO piece, and essentially the same with that. However, your work desktop and everything else is going to be the exact same thing. You're not going to make any changes, and you're going to have the same system that you prefer to use.
So hopefully it looks basically like this. Exactly the same as it was the day before we moved over to Crosslink. So there will certainly be some bells and whistles in terms of some of the debugging. But as far as the request processing goes, we're hoping that we're aspiring to be boring. Let's put it that way. So I don't know, Mark, if you want to talk a little bit about how IDS actually is going to be working with the ReShare group.
Let's see, we're going to be seeing what we can do to help out with some of the non-returnables development. We've got like I mentioned before, IDS Logic has different modules to it, though. And one of them is Article Gateway. It has the new version being developed right now and tested at the moment by Andromeda, my developer, has new features for reverse cross-ref, DOI lookups, unpaywall, embargo periods for electronic journals, in addition to the traditional ISSN fixers, date fixers, and other lookup materials to help improve the processing of electronic journals and article requests. That is some of the stuff that we're hoping to get to work with ReShare as you guys are developing the non-returnables, and Andromeda and I will be helping along with that as well. We're also looking to see about some of the other pieces that we can help with the remediations of articles and book chapters for accessibility. And we are going to be doing the best we can to make sure that we can make this the best system. because honestly, we're looking at a point of open access software that it is really going to be the future for libraries. And I'm very happy that we're going to be able to work together on this.
So one of the things I think that we want to talk a little bit about is kind of, is this software that's being developed, or is it software that's actually kind of on its way? So Sarah's going to talk a little bit about what it is that's happening in Trove right now, because they're actually using this software now.
Thanks, Alan. And as Alan said, we are using it right now in Australia, hosting over 300 libraries, and have conducted nearly 45,000 requests already in the last 12-ish months. It's fantastic in the way that we're able to configure it to suit our environment. We've got 3 service levels in Australia. So we've got the normal standard turnaround, express and rush. We also do things like charging for requests, which happens in various networks, but also it allows us to target various mini networks based on geographical locations of those libraries. So we know that in Australia, our postal service is terrible. Getting from one side of the country to the other is near impossible at most times. So is there ways that we can focus our requesting based on where we are in our states? And that's what we're doing today. The other thing is that we wanted to make sure that all of the academic libraries that are running ALMA don't see anything different in their systems. They don't want to use another system to do interlibrary loans. We're actually doing it in their ALMA systems, and they're doing it today. And I'll hand back over to Alan.
So this is basically what the resource sharing partner basically looks like in ALMA. Unlike grabbing something in a community zone where you would actually be talking library to library, in this particular case, you're actually talking library to network. So you're talking about your library going to all of Trove. Trove is basically running in a there are 2 modes to Crosslink, one being transparent, the other being opaque. In the opaque mode, basically that one symbol will go to a broker, and then the broker will actually handle all of the logic. In the transparent mode, you're actually still continuing to talk library to library. Never to be too boring, there are workarounds for some of this. We have some issues that have come out in terms of some of the workflow, particularly around printing slips, that have been a little bit of a problem. We've been able to handle some of this with some crafty ALMA XSLT for the letters. And, it's, as Sarah was saying, this is in production at this point. And so part of what I want to do is I actually want to do, hopefully, a demo where we can actually see what this actually looks like live. So I'm gonna unshare my screen and then share another screen here for a second. So that you can actually see, is everybody seeing my ALMA screen?
We are.
Awesome. Okay. So here's this book. I used to miss him, but my aim is improving. We've sent this request to Trove, asking them to fill this book. So Sarah, do you want to tell me whether you're going to supply this or not?
I will be. So I'm just filling in some details in ReShare. Bear with me. I have just sent a will supply. I'm going to go through my print slip, and I'm just going to scan in the request. And Alan should be seeing it any minute now. It is now marked as shipped.
Okay. Hey, there we go. Okay. So this is what we mean by aspiring to be boring. I'm actually going to receive that book. Whoops. Probably have to. be at a location first. And then we'll receive it. I'll basically grab the URL or get rid of the hashes. Let's see. And we've got 9.2. That's it. Here is our resource sharing receipt that we'll bind to the book, and we'll send that book off to the UC. And me being the bad patron that I am, I never pick it up. So hold on just a second. Okay, I'll go to the hold shelf. And I'm going to return it. There's my letter to actually bind it back. I will just print that out, return the item to the partner. Sarah, you're up.
I can say that I have successfully received that, and I'm just going to scan it in. And it's now complete. The full cycle is done.
Yep. Let's hear it for being boring. So, so that's the request process for lending. Now, or for physical stuff. Now I'm going to actually go to the go to copy. So Sarah, did you receive this?
I have, and I will be marking as will supply. I will then print my pull slip, and I'm going to upload a document, which I can do in ReShare. Bear with me while I find the document that I've prepared.
It's not me as a Muppet again, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It is funny though. So I've now shipped it to you. So you should be getting a link.
Okay, and you'll see that the request is completed. Hopefully, if I go to my mail or not. We have the item. We have access denied. Oh, that sucks. Yes, this is why. Hold on a second. This is a bug. It's a known bug.
Notepad is your friend, Alan.
Yeah, I know. Let's see. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, there it is. So that's non-returnables. So I'm going to just pause there before kind of poking the proverbial demo bear. And we'll get back to the presentation here in just a second.
And apologies for the rickroll, but I had to do it.
Alan, we had a question in the chat.
Sure.
The fact that Alma is showing will supply is fascinating. Does Alma usually have that status? Rapido doesn't.
Actually, Rapido does. What it doesn't have is expects to supply. And I could give you a whole host of states that 18626 supports and that Alma doesn't. But I'm sure I don't want to bore anybody with that. The point being that it does support will supply. It does not support expects to supply. So if you're The difference between the two states is that with expects to supply, you haven't actually located the item. Will supply basically means that you have found that there's an available item and you just haven't processed the loan yet. So will supply has been supported since almost implemented 1866 in version 2014. So it's been around a while.
Thanks.
Okay. So hold on a second. Any other questions? So I do want to talk a little bit about Iliad, and we're gonna get into that in just a second. So. I just need to get back to my sharing. Okay. Oh, before we get too much farther, there's already documentation written up about how to actually set this up. We did this for Trove and CAVAL. Very similar type of documentation is going to be available for when we actually do the Crosslink migration. This particular documentation is on the Ex Libris developer network because it's relevant to the Alma setup. I could imagine that we're going to probably have other types of setups for some of the other request management software, particularly for Iliad as well as for ReShare itself. So we have kind of a development framework that I want to talk a little bit about as far as when and how we're going to be rolling this out. Trove has already agreed, since they already have it in production, to be the guinea pig for the new version. So that's a bonus.
Test bunny, Alan. Test bunnies.
Test bunnies. That's right. I forgot. IDS Network is actually going to be working with Atlas on some of the Iliad integration. It sounds like Iliad 10 from having conversations with Dustin and Sarah over at Atlas are confident that Iliad 10 is going to be released in August or even late July. They've got it out to their beta testers now, and they're just waiting to get some feedback on some dockline functionality, and then they'll be rolling that out. That will include one of the things that we've also had a conversation around have been some accessibility fixes that for the request and the supply apps. Those are actually going forward with this new release into Crosslink. After that, we're still trying to figure out kind of what the implementation looks like for the other tenants, particularly Borrow Direct and Palsy and Minitex. Minitex has its own kind of a request processing piece that's different than Iliad or some of our ILSs. So they have some special requirements there as well. And then for those that we don't actually get during the winter, we'll actually be looking at later in spring. And some of the other kind of plugin services that Mark was talking about in terms of OCRing in-flight PDFs and other types of functionality will be available rolling out in the spring and the summer of 27. So what about the Iliad add-on? Well, there's a lot of development that's happening. You know, one of the questions that's out there is, will the current ModRS add-on actually work within Crosslink, or how is that going to work? We are, at least from the messaging standpoint with Crosslink, we are going to be doing some testing. We're not really sure, given the fact that the add-on actually connects to the messaging agent within ReShare, that the ModRS version of the add-on will actually work with Iliad. There's going to be some testing or some, what did we call them? Test bunnies who are going to be doing that within the SMEs to make sure that that transition, is either smooth, or if it isn't, what are going to be the requirements to actually upgrade to Iliad 10. One of the exciting pieces of news is that we're also looking at a dot release within Iliad. The Crosslink will basically become an integrated network into the Iliad client itself, so you won't potentially need an add-on in order to connect to Crosslink. You'll actually just configure it in the same way that you configure your other Iliad settings within the Iliad client. So depending on where your tenant is in terms of the messaging agent that it's running, it either will or won't run the add-on. So this is part of the reason that there's so much testing that's going to be happening over the fall. Sarah, given the fact that you have the most experience with Crosslink, do you want to talk a little bit about what's supported and what isn't at this point?
Sure. So at the moment, we are supporting the core messages. So as it says there, expects to supply, will supply, as you saw today, the shipped and the returned and the load and completed. We can also, and it's not listed in here, we can also send emojis and chat. So that's just made my absolute day. We've been testing it for ages now. The pending things is that in Australia, we're desperate for renewals. And because of the transport times and students not picking up their books on time, we'd love to be able to do renewals. And the other big one is around conditionals. Currently, we're doing conditionals through the chat function in ReShare, and it can get a little bit finicky depending on how we write the word accept, for example, to the conditionals that we are applying. So we're hoping to sort of finesse that a little bit. Also, with the non-returnables, we want to put a max cost on there and also do the conditionals around that, because sometimes we want to add copyright charges to our current charging schemes, or there's, access reasons that we need to put around some of our non-returnables as well. So that's what we're looking at. I'll pass it back to Alan.
So what about some of the other things that we've been talking about in terms of ebook lending and other types of initiatives? Those are still going on and they're still being planned. One of the things that's important, though, is that the Crosslink is a dependency for all of these. And so in order to actually get to do some of those things, ReShare has to make this migration. So here, for example, you're going to see a panel of a mess that the subject matter expert put together as far as what the process for ebook lending actually looks like, using licensed content protection, or LCP, for sending ebooks and licenses over in between request and supply nodes. So it is happening. We are doing the technical specifications for it, but it is something that's taking a little bit longer because, surprise, surprise, the protocol doesn't support it. So like I was saying, the SMEs actually are revising the requirements. NYU and Lehigh are actually working with New School and Castellini to develop a better way of doing deduplication within the catalog, as well as providing license information within some of the ebooks. And then the hope is that after the Crosslink migration happens, we'll actually have a pilot with the PALC group. So this is just basically kind of a meta message in terms of what things are like or what they're not like. For the what's going to happen on day one versus what's going to happen later on. I just wanted to say, again, think of Crosslink not necessarily as new screens or new functionality. It really is new plumbing. And with that, here's just a diagram of all of the different ways that Crosslink is actually involved within the ReShare application stack. So the takeaway basically is we've moved from Crosslink basically being just this platform to really having to think about it as a network strategy. And so this is really setting us up for success in a number of different areas, whether that's trading requests with Rapido or some other four-letter word that we might have as a vendor. So there's any number of possibilities that we can actually trade these types of requests with. And so with that, I just want to leave people with a final thought or a final message. Crosslink is coming. It is on its way here. We hope that you can either be part of the testing. If you want to get involved with some of the functional specifications, please talk to me or Tom Bruno, my co-convener with the subject matter experts. This is happening, and I'm really excited to see the possibilities of what we're going to be able to do with it. So with that, I will turn it over to the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. I think you had a Q&A slide if you wanted to put that up. But
Sure.
yeah, if anyone has any questions for Sarah and Alan and Mark, please raise your Zoom hand and I will call on you, or you can drop it in chat.
Charlotte, I think there was one about statistics, and I'm happy to answer that. So currently we're running statistics from ReShare, and we are able to find out who the suppliers and the requesters are, and we send those out to the supplying libraries and the Alma libraries as well, so they get all of those stats.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Did we answer Joanne's question about using Iliad? Will the articles automatically posted to the Iliad server for the patron, or does this require a manual download?
I did comment on that. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's also going to depend on how Atlas ends up doing the Crosslink network functionality that they're building in. It's going to essentially be like a rapid piece, which then translates into how we're doing the sending. Are we using the Odyssey protocol, which is an open protocol thanks to Atlas? Are we sending it via URL? There's going to be a few possibilities on how we can do this, especially when we're dealing with the remediation server. So there could be a little bit of tweaking that we have to do, but I would love it if we could end up using the Odyssey protocol for for Iliad, and then we'll see about how we're handling it for everybody else.
Thank you. Any other questions? If folks think of questions later on, who's a good person to get in contact with to ask them more?
I'm always up for volunteering Mark for stuff. No, seriously, I would actually just email the community engagement, and they'll basically send the message to the relevant committee, because sometimes it's a communications issue. Sometimes it's you have a specific question about your Iliad instance and how that's going to work. That might go to the SMEs, it might go to the product team. So community engagement is the best place to send your questions.
And how we're going to be integrating Crosslink and ReShare is going to be a group effort. So I think Alan's absolutely right. If it ends up being a pure Crosslink question, it'll get forwarded to me and I'll answer it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I guess we'll go back to the main slide deck now as we wrap things up. All right. So that brings us to the end of our scheduled meeting. I hope y'all came away from this with some really interesting, ideas. And yeah, I also just see we've got Sarah from Atlas saying that we're working on things with Mark still, a more integrated workflow to get things to work directly with Crosslink via ISO 18626 may require a small update after Iliad v10 is out. We're still working out the pieces of being able to query suppliers or supplies and treat it more like a network than just peer-to-peer. Thank you very much for that additional information, Sarah. And as we come to a close, as Alan said, if you have any questions about Crosslink or Project ReShare in general, or if more broadly you're interested in getting involved with any of our fabulous committees or learning more, please reach out the community engagement team is here to help you. We are community-engagement@projectreshare.org. And once the Slack is open, you can always at me at Charlotte M. Johnson, and I will get you hooked up with whoever you need to get hooked up with. Jerry is putting a feedback form in the chat. Please, if you feel like it, go and leave us some feedback about how this meeting went. Jerry, can we also get a final link to the Slack sign-up form? And I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Australia, I'm sorry that you are up so early, and maybe we'll have a nighttime meeting one of these days. All right, thank you all so much. I will let you go now. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.